Welcome to today's devotion, everybody. We're in Mark's Gospel, chapter 6, and I'm so thankful you've joined me. Hope you've already read this chapter. And reading this chapter, especially the comments about King Herod and his thoughts about John the Baptist, made me think about how in our culture today there are a lot of people who are spiritual but don't like to call themselves religious, or spiritual but don't want to identify as Christian or as this or as a church person, but just more and more people becoming detached, if you will, from quote unquote established religion and thinking of themselves as being spiritual people. And one of my takeaways from this chapter is that being curious when it comes to religion and spiritual things, having an interest in it, having a respect for those things, being spiritual, so to speak, is actually inadequate. It's not enough to get anyone to heaven, to ensure that someone has a relationship with Jesus Christ and is actually saved. In this story, in this chapter, Jesus' popularity is increasing, and word is, people are talking about him all over the country. And King Herod hears about it, and in chapter 6, verse 14, King Herod heard of it, for his name had become well known. That's talking about Jesus now. And people were saying, John the Baptist is risen from the dead. And that is why these miraculous powers are at work. You'll remember Jesus had asked his disciples, what do people say about me? Who do they think I am? And they said, well, some think you're John the Baptist come back from the dead, or one of the ancient prophets, who's appeared again, et cetera, et cetera. And so King Herod had heard all these rumors and all this stuff about Jesus. And down in verse 16, when Herod heard of it, he kept saying, so he's thinking to himself, he's saying out loud to others, John, whom I beheaded, has risen. And you'll remember that King Herod was the one who had John the Baptist executed by beheading. Verse 17 drops back, is recounting what happened when Herod killed John. So verse 17, for Herod himself had sent and had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip. He had stolen his brother's wife because he married her. And verse 18, for John had been saying to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. What you did is a sin, violated Jewish law. And verse 19, Herodias had a grudge against him, against John the Baptist, and wanted him put to death and could not do so. She didn't have the power to do that. Verse 20, for Herod, notice this, was afraid of John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man. And here's the part that caught my attention. He, King Herod, kept himself safe, kept John safe until eventually he was put in a bind where he could no longer do that and had John executed. Notice this, though, in verse 20. And when King Herod heard John the Baptist, he was very perplexed, and he used to enjoy listening to him. And then it goes on to tell about when King Herod actually executed John the Baptist. But what caught my attention was that before Herod executed John the Baptist, he liked John the Baptist, kept him safe, and would listen to him a lot. In fact, it said at the end of verse 20 that he used to enjoy listening to him. King Herod knew about the Jewish traditions and religion because he was part Jewish, his background. He was, you might call him a spiritual person, not a godly person, not a committed person, but a spiritual person who had interest in all this stuff and actually enjoyed some of it. Yet when it came down to crunch time, he did whatever he wanted to do or whatever he needed to do, even if it violated the will of God, the teaching of God, the commands of God. Still had him assassinated. And there are a lot of people like that today. They are spiritual, and they think because they are spiritual and they're interested in this and that, they're okay, even though time and time again they disobey the Word of God. They have not committed their lives to the lordship of Jesus Christ, repented of their sin, and placed their faith in Him. So you can be spiritual all you want and still go to hell. Spiritual all you want, not know Jesus, not know God, not have a relationship with Him. You don't know God just because you think you do. You feel like you do. You know God when you obey God, when you commit your life to the lordship of Jesus Christ. And His Word is God speaking to us and telling us what to do. Spirituality it's okay, but it's never, ever enough. And that's the word for today. I'll see you tomorrow.